I'm a witch. I've been a witch for over 20 years. I have an environment with cats, magical knowledge of books, certificates across the year of learning and advancement, magical herbs, recipes, and remedies, tools with crystals and tarot cards and other forms of divination. But this is one example of somebody who has been doing this for 20 years. Do any of these items or possessions define who I am at my core, at my soul? Do they validate or invalidate this label of being a witch? Am I only a witch because I have these things? Or do I have these things just as part of being a witch? Look at this little face! The point that I'm trying to make here is that at any given moment, I may or may not look like a witch. And if I am not wearing certain items or showing off certain elements that are within my sacred home space, people may or may not know that I actually am a practitioner. But the question is, do any of these things define this label of witchhood? And the answer is no. The question is, does anyone's opinion matter if I look or portray myself in a way that makes it obvious that I am a witch or a magical practitioner? The answer is no. The question is, do aesthetics and does the presence of items and witchy wares define somebody as being either a witch or a magic worker or not? And the answer is no. The best way for us to identify another witch or magic worker in our community or out in the wild is based on intuition, based on communication, based on the words and the energy and the frequency that an individual exudes. In the spaces of magic and witchcraft and energy work, we are moving away from the realm of matter and diving into the realm of ether, of astral, of spirit, and communication therein. And so we must utilize these resources as primary ways in identifying someone in our community, a kindred spirit. We must utilize our intuition and our communication through our relationships with spirit, whether that is your higher self, your spirit guides, your animal totems, angel realm, the spirits of the land, the devas and spirits that govern the elements and nature. All of these things are ways that we are communicating through and amplified because of spirit. Ultimately, that's a long introduction to say that this video and this conversation today is really for the person who, or this person was in my mind when creating this video, the person who wants to get started on a witchcraft or magical practice and isn't looking to spend a bunch of money right away. So how can you get started on your witchy or magical practice for free or as close to free as possible? And honestly, I was so tired yesterday after my work week. I was like, I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to pass out. It's going to be great. And then I laid down and I was wide awake for over an hour. And this was the conversation that was playing through my head. So it's divinely aligned timing for this conversation. If you are another magic worker or witch, energy worker that comes across this video and wants to contribute to this conversation, please, as always, share your wisdom, your thoughts, and your experience down in that comment section below. So one of the reasons why I love this conversation is because I actually very much approve and recommend starting a magical practice with purchasing the fewest amount of external items possible. As a practicing witch and magic worker for over 20 years, when I transitioned from a religious member, a church member, and started on my path as a witch, Wiccan, magic worker, through that transition, there were a lot of resources and books that right away spoke about tools, candles, crystals, books, herbs, poppets, wands, athames, chalices, magical wardrobe, and all of these things. And so we can very quickly get into the mindset that all of these things are essential to building the foundation of a witchcraft and magical practice. But that actually can be further from the truth. So all of these items can amplify somebody's witchy or magical practice. Your robe that you wear every time you cast a circle or do spell work can accumulate the energy that is raised in that cone of power over time. Your crystals and candles can enhance the separation of space as you move from layman or non-magical into magical mindset. Some of these rituals and moving of energetic amplification into the space when transitioning from non-magical activities to magical activities can really help our mindset to ready ourselves to move into that magical space. But it's really a small shift that happens, and once again is by no means necessary. So what I would suggest for people that are wanting to get started on a magical or witchcraft journey, but don't want to dump a bunch of money into these random tools right away, and rightly so, is I would recommend getting started on a practice of meditation, mindset, intuition. All of these things are free. It's really a conversation of consistency and discipline to show up as you start to dedicate yourself to your magical practice. You don't have to sit at an altar specifically or sit in front of a statue of a specific goddess or deity. You don't even need to have a specific goddess, god, deity, or archetype that you are working with to get started in this practice. You're really working on building and nourishing and conditioning a relationship with your inner self, with your higher self, with your magical mindset and intuitive capacities. None of these things require tools. And actually, when we start our magical practice with the mindset of we need to purchase these tools, we can very easily get hijacked into the mentality that we're constantly chasing the carrot, the proverbial horse with the carrot right in front of its face. If I just have that one tarot deck, if I just have that one magical candle, if I just have this crystal that I'm seeing online, then I will be the witch, then I will feel the label of magic worker. Then I will be confident and worthy of holding space as a healing practitioner. Again, nothing could be further from the truth. And I myself have fallen into that trap so many times across those 20 years. So many times. And hindsight is 2020. So when I look back on my magical journey, I'm like, none of those things were necessary. None of them were. Is it great to support local witchy businesses? Absolutely, yes. Hey, don't knock over my camera, please. Absolutely, yes. What I would encourage is starting a path where you are supporting magical and witchy businesses from a lens. Sir, please. Sir, you're going to get banished. From a lens of services and classes first. When we start to adopt a new practice, a lot of what we really need to focus on is shifting our beliefs and what is possible. So delving in and investing in services and classes that can help us break down harmful energies and cords and beliefs as we start to focus on new beliefs and practices can be very helpful. This conversation isn't to say, by all means, don't ever treat yourself to a new crystal or talisman or piece of jewelry or lovely familiar, or, get some supplies to, cast a circle or do a spell. But again, none of those things are required. And I know when I started my path, I actually felt like I couldn't get started playing around in the energy of magic and spell work because I didn't have 6 candles to light to, do this full moon ritual that I read in a book. And I was like, ooh, since I don't have that, I can't do it. When you absolutely can. You can close your mind and envision a candle. You can connect with the element of fire and welcome its presence into your space. You can use your hands as a cup or chalice and use your finger to point as a wand as you're casting your circle. You don't need external items to do that. And you don't need to wait to start to develop your relationship with your own magical mindset and beliefs and connect with the energies that are just on the other side of that veil. You don't need to wait to have a budget to purchase a specific item to do that. And even when you do have a financial abundance in your life and can start to accumulate things, there is a relationship that's built with our magical tools. And as we continue to nourish and build that relationship, our tools work stronger, they work better, more accurately, and our power and ability to channel through them is expanded. When we get into these consumerism mindsets of chasing the newest thing, we're not allowing adequate time to build and nourish a relationship with new tools. And so there's really no need to do that. It's a lack mentality or a fear of missing out. Like if I don't jump on this, it's going to disappear and then I will have to get a different one. So what? We live in the world. We live in a world of so much abundance. Even if you feel called to a specific deck, if something happens and you're not able to purchase that deck and then for some reason it's no longer available, it is by no means the end of your tarot journey or magical journey. It wasn't available. You weren't available for it. It was beautiful. You felt drawn to it. But what about it did you feel drawn to? Was it the aesthetic? Was it the color scheme? Did some of those things emit a certain energy or emotion from within you? It may have been that you were drawn to, and not necessarily the cardstock that it was printed on. So our beliefs and our mentality is going to be what drives and leads our magical practice. I will say that starting out slowly and focusing on starting to listen to your intuitive hits is going to be a great energy to start to drive your magical practice. This is done by slowing down and being in reflective space. This can be done by journaling, having a journaling or writing practice. Mina, I hate journaling. Okay, audio recording. Record your thoughts. Stop scrolling for a little bit. Turn the Xbox off. Close down the books. Shut down Netflix, whatever it is, and spend some time alone with your thoughts, alone with your beliefs, being aware and mindful of what the patterns are that show up in the thoughts that you have every day. Are they patterns that have an underlying tone of encouragement or fear? And starting to recondition some of those beliefs to allow more possibility and excitement and accessibility and wonder and curiosity into your life. Meditation. Meditation is one of the biggest keys to a solid magical practice that connects you to other spirits and energies. We talk about protection a lot when it comes to magical spaces, meditative spaces. So customize your practice. There is no one way fits all. And if you are somebody who has a lot of innovative ideas, I do not like the conversation of don't reinvent the wheel before you learn the basics. Activate your intuition and follow where these hits are guiding you, while also looking into what others may or may not be doing online. This is such a quick search online with the powers and resources that we have available. Tips for a beginning meditator. How should I set my space? Best tips to start meditation for somebody who has never meditated before. Tips to start casting a circle without any tools. You don't even need to watch a YouTube video. AI will give you plenty of tips. It'll at least give you the basics, or even just a general internet search. You technically don't even need to buy a book. I encourage these things as we go on our journey, but they should never be obstacles that prevent us from getting started on our magical journey and starting to really delve into the meat and potatoes of magic, which is our intuition, our beliefs, and our daily dedication to show up for this. Now, the first time I ever cast a circle, I felt silly. It felt absolutely no different from my everyday waking, non-magical human existence. I was like, is this even possible, or am I just being ridiculous? But as I continued to show up and started to open my mind with what was possible, I felt something. All of a sudden, when I cast a circle, I would feel this wave crash over me of very strong and intense energy of magic. All of a sudden, I felt drawn and connected with beings and characters that I would look up their attributes after our session, and the names and animals and visuals that they shared in meditative space, and would connect with beings like Caradwin, Bridget, Morgan, Hecate, Kali, Lilith, and so many more. So many more. And then I would look up the attributes and I would see, ooh, that was a confirmation for me. I would journey and experiment and have trial and error as I started to nourish my beliefs with this new practice. And a lot of that just came from the devotion and consistency to sit down in meditative space, expand my mind, create a environment of safety and protection, which can be done just by words. It can be done as you're counting yourself in meditative space. You know, when I learned a lot about meditation, I adopted a crystal countdown, but I always consider it a chakra countdown as I would go into meditative space, and I would reaffirm after I counted myself down. So 3, 2, 1, I am now in a meditative space where I have access to all of my magical abilities. I invite my guides and guardians to protect and guide me in this meditative space. So that way I can connect with the messages that are most needed at this time. That's just the routine of what I was taught in the classes that I took and what I encountered. All of that information can be found online for free right now. And I just told it to you. That could be a launching point that you could customize to what fits you. We want to allow good in. We want to neutralize or not allow any harmful or incorrect energies. And then as I would come out of my meditative space, I would say, sweeping my hands over my aura, I now give myself total health clearance. I'm in balance with myself. I'm in balance with the universe. I release all that does not serve. And that is how I end every meditation that I do. This allows me to be in a sovereign, magical space, open and trusting and connecting with the energies that are presenting themselves in this space, knowing that I am held and led through it. And it also nourishes my centers and auras when I exit my meditation or magical event. So I know that I am not taking any attachments or lingering cords or energies with me into my non-magical or whatever I'm doing after meditation. We can choose to meditate or go into magical space about anything. You might journal and realize that there is a conditioning belief that is showing up and is limiting your progress. And you might have certain blocks around that and choose to use that as your intention when you go into a meditative space, when you cast a circle and, connect with different energies. This can be what helps start to re-identify, redefine what these beliefs look like for you. I also think that another very important part of starting a magical journey without all of these other tools is getting out into nature. There's an amazing documentary about grounding on YouTube. Last time I checked, it was free, although I do pay for YouTube. So it might not be free for everybody, but watch a video about grounding. Get outside and stick those toesies on some grass, toes to grass. There is so many benefits to connecting once again with Mother Gaia. It helps clear and reset any harmful or residual energies that are in our centers and aura, which can also be very helpful when we're looking at transferring and changing beliefs that don't serve us. We can go for walks out in nature and just choose to have the music off or the audiobooks off or any of those things, so we're listening to the breeze rustling through the leaves of the trees. We're seeing the different wildlife that show up even in the heart of the city. And we're listening to the air and the sunshine, or the drizzly rain, or the soft, quiet snow. And we are connecting with the energy of the land. And there is very few easier ways to connect with the stillness and the whisper of our guides, of our higher selves, of our magical soul than in that space. And it's free. It's free. It just takes decision and consistency to show up for it on our end. Now, I will say that there is a lot of benefit to taking classes, to having sessions, to developing intuitive practices, learning how and improving our relationship with our higher selves or spirit guides. There is benefit to having all of these tools, to having herbs, to having crystals, to having candles, to having tarot decks or different divinatory tools. But these are essentially launching points, and they are amplifiers in our magical practice and routine. They are not required. And that's ultimately the conversation that I'm trying to get at here. These tools are not required to start a magical practice. It's not required for you to have every different hue, to have, oils and herbs and all of these things, to specifically carve and do all of these things as part of a candle spell. Take all of this as tips and tricks, ways to get us into more of a devoted and dedicated and time amplified space as we're building the magic poured into something. But you can just as easily sit in quiet space with a 50-cent white or black candle, something that's very neutral, and pour all of those things into it. And in fact, I encourage it. I encourage you to have no tool and pick an element, and just in your mind's eye or with the different energies around you, picture that element. Picture yourself diving into that element and being surrounded and infused with it. Be curious and start to communicate with that element, to allow it to move through you in transformative and healing and channeling spaces. That is actually one of the best ways to increase and improve your relationship with said element. You can go out into nature and sit down and meditate next to something that is already there. It doesn't have to be something specific. And in fact, you will improve and strengthen your relationship with the energies and spirits of your immediate land and home, town, state, all of these things by doing some of those things, by looking at what resources are naturally around you and where you feel drawn. While being cautious, in my mind, I remember a time when I lived on the East Coast and I was just starting to be very curious about herbs and plants. And I did purchase a Peterson's Field Guide, just a book that essentially I could look through based on primary color, find an image that matched the image of what I was seeing wildcrafting or, just hiking out in nature and looking at it. But as I did that, there were times that I would go for a walk and I would see something very intriguing and I would put it in the palm of my hand and start to practice using my intuition to see if I would get any hits as far as what it was used for. There was a very, very specific example that I remember that I saw this beautiful bright red berry, and there were some purple flowers that were part of this bush. And I thought, ooh, I'm very drawn to this energy. And I stuck these berries in the palm of my hand, and I felt immediately alarms go off. It felt like there were hot pins jumping in the palm of my hand where these berries sat. And immediately I felt in my mind, do not consume these, but take them home and look them up later. This is a great way to start to develop a intuitive practice in, one pathway. I get home, I look them up, and they were part of a nightshade family. They were very much poisonous. And it's a very good thing that I did not just say, I'm trusting my intuition. I'm drawn to this bright red color and I'm going to put them in my mouth. No, it was, let's connect with the energy first. Let's do some research later and see what our intuitive hit led us to. Now, in that experience, I was able to identify very early in my green witch journey that prickling sensation on the palm of my hand was one of my intuitive center's ways. I was a lot of plurals, but way that it communicated with me, pretty but do not consume, not safe to consume. And that is just one example of what developing and playing with relationships with what is in our immediate surroundings can do. So this is just a very high overview conversation to what to do to get started in your magical or witchy journey. Sit down in meditative space. Find some way that you count yourself down and, reaffirm the I am protected and led whenever you start to open yourself up to different dimensions and states of consciousness and alternative states of consciousness, okay? Make sure that you set intentions of being protected and led anytime you do that. Make sure that you reaffirm when you come out of those spaces. I will remember what I learned here. I will let these experiences nourish my new beliefs of what is possible. I will release and realign myself to the highest timeline connected with the peace and health and love that is available from the universe or whatever beings. Every time I will journal, I will get outside, I will start to challenge my beliefs and mindset to start to develop intuition, to start to open my psychic centers, to start to develop relationships with the elements and the spirits and the energies that are connected directly where I am most drawn towards. And I will also give myself permission to not be perfect, for it to feel silly in the beginning, to have trial and error, and of course to make mistakes. I'll give myself permission for these things, and I'll forgive myself if I royally F up, but I will look at it like like someone conducting an experiment. What went well? What didn't go well? What could I change for the future? How could I make sure to put certain safeguards in place so that way this particular thing doesn't happen again? What boundaries can I set so that way I feel safe and comfortable? Because my initial blossoming in this space is going to be what helps nourish and keep me coming back for more with curiosity and trust. So I am more than happy to have multiple conversations. And, sometimes when I make these videos, it inspires certain things like, oh, I should make a video about that, just kind of describing how I would do those things. So make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that way you can stay up to date with some of those conversations. But in the meantime, use your resources that are available at any given time. A simple search, knowing and being specific on what you are trying to discover, is going to help guide you to what is available and accessible now. And then looking up a few different ones, looking at a few different articles, or watching a few different videos, or listening to a few different creators, and really tapping into your emotional and mental centers, activating your intuition, whatever stepping stone or level that's at right now. So that way you can see what resonates with me and what really doesn't. That might mean that what doesn't resonate with you won't resonate with you later, but it might mean that where you're at right now doesn't resonate with it right now. We're always growing, changing, and evolving, and it's totally advisable to give yourself permission to do so. Who I am in 2026 might not be who I am, or what my practice looks like, or what my beliefs look like in this space in 2036, or back in 2016, or 2006. It's going to change and evolve over time. And it's okay to reflect and look at yourself in the mirror and say, who I am and where I am changing and moving is just another part of this journey. Am I ultimately trying to be somebody that is channeling magic and love and healing and bringing in pockets of magic to improve the collective experience, while also driving from the self-wisdom, self-advancement, self-developing, nourishing place? Is ultimately the intentions of what I'm doing to help create a better environment? Where is the curiosity and drive coming from? Am I trying to ultimately become somebody who is more sovereign and empowered, who has boundaries and, recognizes, like, for example, empaths? Somebody that recognizes that I can train myself to become somebody that can filter in and understand the energies of an environment or people within. And I can use that to easily identify the truth of the environment or individuals, but I actually don't have to absorb that through me. I can recognize that it's a passing through my space, and I don't have to hold on and keep it. I can let it pass through. I can let it move through, and it doesn't have to stay with me forever. So there are so many beautiful, different things within the realm of magic, energy work, healing work, witchcraft, and all sorts of different branches from this beautiful tree. It's going to look different for so many different people. And the exciting thing is that we spoke about 20 different things, to exaggerate here today, that you can use to get started. So, just start with just one thing. If you look at where you're at right now and kind of where you're wanting to be, what's just one thing that you can shift when it comes to your habits and routines as they stand right now, that can shift to move in that direction of taking action towards becoming this version of yourself? So this was quite a long conversation. I hope that you enjoyed it today. Let me know any thoughts, any questions, any call outs down in that comment section below. I would be more than happy to hear your thoughts. I also typically will post a couple questions just to get the conversation started. So feel free to take a peek down there and see what questions I left for you that you can start to contribute to the conversation. if for nothing else, just to be able to identify certain things that may be under the surface of your own psyche, mindset, beliefs, emotions in this space. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date with videos as they come out. This is Mina. I will see you next time. Until then, stay wild and spooky, but most of all, stay magical. All right, take care.